So our last section is about composition and artistic transitions. So to start with, I want to talk a little bit about space, time, movement invention, and artistic transitions. So beginning with space. Space is the visual medium in which we live. Using space in choreographic composition, we can explore and develop many different ways of using the space. So with walking patterns, running patterns, floor patterns, are we moving in straight lines, curved lines, grid patterns? Think of all the different ways to use the floor space. Then explore levels in space, high, medium, low, and explore all of the contrasts. Next, are distances within space, things that are near or far within the movement between the different gymnasts in the space. Explore the contrasts. Next is spatial patterns, which I know you do a lot of work in that, especially with the routines, with the group routines. So really explore lots of different spatial patterns and try to think outside the box and come up with new ways of using the space. And of course, entrances and exits. Then we have shapes in space. All of the different shapes. You can play with asymmetrical versus symmetrical shapes, or angular versus round shapes, or straight versus curved, or creating different sculptures. So within the spaces, also explore contrasts. So this is just some ideas I'm kind of brainstorming with you of how you can really explore the space in which you're going to create your choreography. Next, we have time. Time is our invisible environment. We can feel it through rhythm, through a pulse, and by marking off time durations. Using time in our choreographic composition, we can explore and develop pulse. So walking, running, skipping, jumping accents, all the movement accents that are related to pulse. We can explore speeds, different speeds, slow, medium and fast, and the extremes. How slow can we move? How fast can we go? Explore these contrasts. Next are the accents within time. How do we use the musical accents to accentuate and enhance our technical elements and the choreographic elements? And these are some things we talked about in music and rhythm, but now we're talking globally about time, and accents are present within time. So these are the three elements of time we can explore: pulse, speed, and accents. In composition, we also have movement invention. And for me, movement invention is focusing on imagination. As I just said earlier, we want to connect the gymnasts' physicality and knowledge of their bodies with their imaginations. So delve into the imagination with your gymnasts and discover new artistic movement ideas. Um, you can use imagery. I like to play with animals, fish, birds, the four elements: water, air, earth, and fire. I find are a really strong starting point, the four elements that people can really connect with, and they create all different qualities of movements and different types of movement. Anything in nature, or it could also be urban environments and cityscapes that might inspire you. You can play with different characters. You can play with themes. So all of these images can really direct your gymnasts to discover new ways of moving that may be abstract or they may be more literal. So as you can see in this picture, this is one of our coaches, the vocal coach at Cirque du Soleil, working with the gymnasts in a vocal workshop, voice and rhythm workshop, and she was using pictures for inspiration. So this is just to give you an idea. You can print up some pictures of different things, and that can be your point of improvisation, because it's very important to not just ask the acrobats or your gymnasts to just improvise. It helps to give some parameters that help them to kind of focus on something. So if you talk first about, okay, we're going to improvise on the four elements, This is going to help a lot. You can say, okay, what is water? Okay, it's low, it's slow, it's continuous. What is air? Oh, maybe it's light, or it's a very windy day, so kind of thrusting you around. Or earth is heavy and weighted and more grounded. Or fire is fast and light and kind of unpredictable. So you want to also give them some little sort of key elements to help them to improvise. And I found pictures really work, or like I just said, talking about uh, the actual imagery that you want to explore, just to give people some parameters to follow and to help to inspire ideas. Another fun movement invention is mirroring, putting your gymnasts in pairs with a leader and a follower. And by following the other person, you come up with some fun ideas, and you move in a different way than you're used to moving, and then reverse the roles. And this can also produce really fun movement invention. Also in movement invention, it's fun to explore movement contrasts and levels. So you could work with asymmetrical or symmetrical movements, or angular versus fluid movements, or sharp versus soft, or as I just talked about elements, fire versus water, or earth versus air. These contrasts, um, and then obviously levels and speeds, can really inspire a lot of new ideas. Another thing we can explore are substances and materials, just giving your gymnasts ideas like, okay, be paper or honey or broken glass, metal, oil, popcorn, velvet, elastic, mud, feathers, marshmallows, bricks, clouds, and on and on. Come up with ideas, or even ask them. Go and think of, in little groups or in groups of two, think of four substances, and then show them to us, and the rest of the group has to try to guess. And just by doing this and videoing everything, you will come up with some really fun ideas and new ways of moving and expressing ourselves. Also exploring the environments. I like to play with hot and cold, or we'll say, okay, you're on the moon and suddenly everyone's in zero gravity movement, or you're in quicksand and you're being sucked to the ground, into the earth, or the ocean or outer space. Um, Snowstorms, a busy city. You're in New York City on Times Square, and you give these different environments as ideas to help to feed the imagination, and then ask your gymnast to improvise and film it. And this is going to definitely give you new material for your act. And if you already have a idea for your act, the environments that they are going to explore could be related to that act. For instance, say you're it's a voyage, I don't know, through a magical forest or something. Then you could explore that forest, and then you arrive at the ocean and you explore the sea. So these could be ideas that you, first of all, just have more free improvisation in the theme of your routine, that then finally you will develop, and it will become more and more specific over time. But at the beginning, give yourself that space to explore in a more free way, and therefore innovate new ideas. So moving on to artistic transitions, some of the points you might want to explore are, how can you blend together the gymnastic, the technical, and the artistic? We want to blend the two together. So to work at blending these artistic transitions, you want to try to melt the technical and the artistic together. One way to do that is to explore, for instance, 3 to 5 ways to get out of a technical gymnastic element. You could start with a handstand. Ask them all to go by themselves or in pairs, and come up with 5 interesting ways of how to get out of a handstand, and see what they come up with. Then you could also explore 5 different ways to go from one element to the other element, and get each group or individual improvising for 5 minutes. Then they come back and they show each other their ways of doing that, and you, as a group, you can decide to develop certain of these ideas that you find work best or work best for your routine. Also, you want to explore, how can I maintain the artistic expression, the theme, the character, or the color throughout the number, throughout all of the gymnastic technical elements? How can we maintain the artistic expression? That's a very important thing to explore and to develop. And for a transition that's not working well, explore new ways to go from A to B. Explore different speeds, try different speeds. Maybe you're getting stuck on doing it in one way, try the opposite. So explore slow or very fast or medium. Use the contrasts. Also explore different levels. Maybe you could try the same movement but lower to the ground or higher. And again, explore the contrasts. And then we get to distances. Maybe that transition could work better if you spread it out in the space, or if you made it much smaller, or where does it happen in the space. So also for group acts, another thing that's very important is explore lots of ways of getting from one element to the next with the group. Get the gymnasts to propose or invent 3 new ways to go from A to B, from one element to the next in that transition maybe that's working not so well. And video these improvisations and then watch them together and choose the most interesting choreographic ideas and then continue to explore and develop these together. So hopefully these are some ideas that will help you to work on transitions that you want it to be more artistic, more innovative, and to be more smooth in their performance. So just to recap on our 4th section of composition and artistic transitions. So within composition, we talked about space. Space is the visual medium in which we live. You can explore and develop all the uses of the space, the floor patterns, the walking patterns, grid, your level, your distances, the spatial patterns, shapes, and sculptures. Also time. Time is our invisible environment. How do we feel the rhythm? How can we use that in our choreographic composition? So explore and develop pulse, how the rhythm of walking or running or jumping, and our movement accents. Explore speed, all the different speeds and the extremes. Explore accents. How can we accentuate and emphasize the technical and choreographic elements? And then in composition, movement invention is very, very important. And this focuses on imagination and connecting imagination with our physicality and our physical expression. So for inspiration, you can use imagery, animals, elements, nature, characters. You can play with mirroring, with contrasts and levels, with substances and materials, and with all the different environments that you can dream of. Then we get to artistic transitions, very important. How do you blend the technical and artistic together to become one? So you can explore different ways from going from one element to another. And how do you maintain the artistic expression throughout the number? And for the difficult transitions, find new ways to go from A to B. Explore all the different possibilities of speeds and levels and distances, and choose your best choreographic ideas, and then develop these with your artists, your gymnasts. So we've arrived at the end of my presentation on artistry, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I just wanted to quickly recap the different main points that we've talked about, and I really hope that you'll be able to use these in your work, in your creative work, in your artistic aspect of your routines. So the main elements that we've covered today are focus, breath, and expression. So very important. Focus. The eyes are such an important tool. You have to get your gymnasts to really connect with one another and the public. And this is key as a performer, to communicate with the public, to connect with the public. The eyes can express emotions, they can express a story. So use them, they're a great tool. But be sure that the eyes are connected, the eyes are in the head, the eyes in the head have to move in connection with the body. So be sure that there's a freedom of movement through the neck. It's very important that we don't have stiff necks because that really limits how we can use our eyes as this expressive tool. Also with the props, the eyes can really direct the focus and intention and where you want the public to look. So this is also very important. We can use the fixed point focus, which we talked about, which also gives a real punch and impact at certain moments. And this takes us to how to connect expression with movement, and it's really by breath and breathing. This is really the connecting factor between technical and artistic. So revise those breathing exercises I mentioned earlier and try to get your gymnasts breathing. I know it's not natural for them. It's not something we talk a lot about, but it really makes a difference. For myself, I discovered this when I arrived at Cirque du Soleil coming from dance, and I discovered theater. And through theater, I learned about adding breath to movement as a dancer, and I saw how it brought performance alive and made uh, the artists so much more authentic in their performance. Our second main point was musicality and rhythm. So for musicality and rhythm, you want to choose the best music for your act. You want to listen to that music structure, get to know it, and then place your routine on the musical structure. Also use the rhythm within the music to inspire your choreographic structure. And of course, we have the musical phrasing of the music. You want to interpret that musical phrasing and express the music and be authentic and try to be one with the music. Then we arrived at the creative process and how to generate new ideas. And through exploration and improvisation, we can really come up with a lot of new ideas and give yourselves the time for this research and development if you can. It will make a huge difference to the originality of your routines. And for the creative process, you need an open mindset. And you also want to have fun. The process should be fun. This is going to create more freedom and a more fluid, risk-taking environment where new ideas can be born. And you'll find that the creative process is great for team building too. So this is a really important element, I believe, in our work with the youngsters, is to have that positive team building and great communication with your team. Then we got to composition. And composition is very important too to build a really interesting routine. So you want to think about space, you want to think about time, and you want to think about movement invention. All of this connected to imagination and imagery. You're going to come up with some great ideas, and I can't wait to see them. And then, of course, artistic transitions. You know, yes, there's the transitions between the technical and the artistic, but try to blend the two. Try to make them one, if possible. So even when they're doing a technical element, have some small percentage of it being artistic. And when they're doing something very artistic, obviously there's technique involved. So the two have to be really connected and blended together. And this is going to help you to invent innovative transitions. So these are the main points I wanted to share with you. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and please feel free, if you have any questions for me, you can send me an email. I'd be happy to respond and support you in any way I can with your new routines with your gymnasts. So thank you again, and have a great 2023.